Me being a cameraman for a living, no shot. One thing led to another. I was filming friends in the gym just because I enjoyed it. How much do you charge to make a video? And I was like, how much do I charge? What do you mean? In January, my first month this year, I did $4,000. The month before that, in December, was $2,500. The first thing I learned when entering the program was, wow, there is so much that I do not know. Hiring, learning how to build a team, that's a tricky thing to do in the creative industry. When you have a system like that's in the Wealthy Creative, it makes it a lot simpler, it makes it easier to work through. We just had back-to-back 20K months. Right now, it feels like the baseline now because I've set a new standard.
So you went from $2,500 to now you're making $20,000 back-to-back consecutive months. And you're how old?
20 years old.
You're 20. Dude, I thought you knew you were in your 20s. I didn't know you were 20 years old. That's incredible. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Wealthy Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes, and I've got with me my good friend, Josh Dyrlie. How you doing today, dude?
Blessed to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's been so cool getting to know you as we've worked together over the last few months. I would love to just share with the audience a little bit about who you are, your backstory, where you're from, and like how did you actually get into selling video?
I have always been a fitness enthusiast, so that was my thing. And in high school, I took a photography class just to get the extra credits. You know, I didn't think I was like, me being a cameraman for a living, no shot. Took the photography class. I thought it was kind of cool. Then after I graduated high school, I was like, I want to become interesting. I thought my life was going to be, I was going to be a bodybuilder for a career. I thought I was going to be a fitness coach and a bodybuilder. And I saw the camera one day and I was like, I want to become interesting. And I'd already had a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset. I started a few quote unquote businesses. One thing led to another. I was filming friends in the gym just because I enjoyed it. It was what I like to be around. And then before I knew it, the gym was like, hey, how much do you charge to make a video? And I was like, how much do I charge? What do you mean? So one thing led to another. And now here I am building a video agency.
What were some of the biggest challenges or struggles that you were facing before we started working together?
So I would say the biggest struggle I was facing before I joined the Wealthy Creative was I had hit the 10K month mark, which is a big milestone for a lot of people, but I realized I couldn't get past that without having people around me to help continue to build and take on more clients, take on higher level clients, and also be able to focus on the things that are going to grow the business rather than working in the business all the time. And it's still something that I'm working around nowadays, but things are a lot different than they used to be. I have a small team around me who is helping me right now, and I'm working on growing that team.
How in the world did we get connected the first time? Like what drew you to the Wealthy Creative? And like, did you have any like big reservations before joining or any hesitation before joining?
What drew me to the program was I think I came across an ad for the Kingdom Creative. As a Christian myself, I was like, oh, a faith-based business coach. Maybe this is a guy that I work with later down the road. But I was pretty comfortable with a business coach at the time. I joined Kingdom Creative and Landon started chatting with me a bit about my business. And I was like, I told him one of the issues I was having, like I was struggling to hire people and build a team around me. So I told Landon, he got me on a call and told me about how he helps videographers get past that point. I had no intention of starting with Landon. Going into that call, I was like, I'm just going to get more information. I think I jumped pretty head in, but one of the reservations I was having was I was very comfortable with my current business coach, and my current business coach helped me get to those 10K months, but his expertise kind of capped out there. I felt like I had outgrown him, but also I found myself relying on him a lot. Like, I don't know how to say this to this client, text the business coach. And I was like, what if I can't succeed without him? And that was hard for me. But then I got into the Creative Academy and I realized that a lot of those issues that I was running to him for were not really issues. Like, that's like the ground level, the basic like communications of business and the basic business skills. And I realized in the Creative Academy that there are way more important things to worry about and focus your effort on.
We really try and focus on like teaching people how to fish rather than just being like, yo, come back, we need another fish, right? That's been a big focus of ours. So you came in through the Kingdom Creative. I feel like we should drop a quick call to action to anybody who wants to check that out. Ironically, I was just talking with Mark and he said the same thing. So if you guys are, you're a faith-based videographer, video agency owner, or you're not, you don't know Jesus, you're not sure about any of this faith stuff, but you want to get some really, really good course material, some good content, even get a hold of the Wealthy Creative Calculator, our video pricing calculator that so many people rant and rave about. Well, then just go join our school group. It's just Kingdom Creative on School. There's about, I think at this point, about 3,200 members, something like that in there already. It's just growing like a weed. And we've got some really good stuff in there. And then we also do Bible studies. So it's Thursday today, actually, and we're going to be doing a Bible study tonight. So it's going to be a lot of fun. What do you feel like was the biggest thing you took away or found the most value in?
The first thing I learned when entering the program was, wow, there is so much that I do not know. Some of the most valuable things that I think I've learned was, of course, hiring, learning how to build a team. That's a tricky thing to do in the creative industry. When you have a system like that's in the Wealthy Creative, it makes it a lot simpler, makes it easier to work through. So that helped me out so much. But also, I have gotten so much great feedback from my clients. Once we start from the initial discovery call to taking the deposit for the project, they're like, I've never been through such a great experience, because working with creatives, you can get a whole different wide range of experiences. Some creatives are just absolutely terrible with the professionalism. So being able to provide such a seamless experience for my clients, that's been very valuable, and my clients love it.
You've had some shifts that have resulted from that, specifically in your guys' revenue, right? So you came in, you had hit that kind of 10K month, right? And then where are you guys at now? And then where are we heading to?
We just had back-to-back 20K months. Right now, it feels like the baseline now because I've set a new standard, but looking in the grand scheme of things, it's incredible because in January, my first month this year, I did $4,000. The month before that in December was $2,500.
So you went from $2,500 to now you're making $20,000 back-to-back consecutive months. And you're how old?
20 years old.
You're 20, dude. I thought you knew you were in your 20s. I didn't know you were 20 years old. That's incredible, man. And I just think about like you're far surpassing already what I was doing when I was that age. So I got to say, it's so cool to see that like, not only are you applying this stuff, it's working for you, but like your appetite for growth is still there. You're like, no, we're going to the next level. We're going to help even more people. Sometimes what happens when people grow is they'll get to the 10K, then kind of plateau off. Then they'll get to the 20K and they'll kind of plateau off, or they'll erode back to the 10K. And I've even seen people erode further than that. You've done the exact opposite. And I think it's because you're constantly focused on not only the client experience, like you do an amazing job with that. You just had, I won't say who the client is or anything, but you just had a large client of yours literally just re-up for another year. And they were so thrilled with the experience that they're like, you're our guy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is be like, now that you're at this 20K per month mark and you were doing 2,500 just in January, it's November now. What would you say to somebody that's, at that 2,500 or less than 5K a month? What would you say to somebody like that right now? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be about the program, but like, what would you say to that person?
Even if you do want to go the creative route, you have to learn the business aspect. You have to learn how to deliver an incredible client experience. You have to learn how to communicate seamlessly, how to operate a business, which is something that I have learned so much about over the past few months, just basic operating stuff like accounting and stuff like that. You got to learn those aspects in order to continue to grow. Having a good coach really will expedite the process. Like I said, I had a business coach who helped me get from making my first dollar up to making 10K months. And he was great for me in that period of time. There's a lot of stuff that I do differently now than I did back then. And then I felt like I outgrew that mentor. So I began working with Landon, and I feel like to continue on this, my ability to invest in myself has been a big aspect of my growth. So definitely invest in your learning, invest in your skill set, and make sure that you are learning those skills that have to do with the business side of things.
What was one of the biggest wins you had? Even in the last few months, like what was like one big moment where you're like, look back, like, holy crap, I did it.
The 20K month was a big moment for me. Yeah, that was a big moment because I set the goal in January to do a 10K month. And I was like, it's not going to happen. You got to be a videographer for 5 years and get taken advantage of by clients and XYZ and go through all the hoops to become a 10K month videographer. You got to go through the trenches. And then to hit a 20K month in just September, 9 months through the year. I hit my 10K month in May. So I set that goal in January, hit it in May. And then I was like, okay, well, I need a new goal, set the goal for 20K, and then hit that in September. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me, the biggest win I've had there. But also just getting the whole process of getting systems down in my business has been a big win. And also finding I have one rockstar editor right now. Finding him was a huge win, and we're still growing together. We're still learning each other. So now I want to find another one and continue to find them as I scale my business. But getting projects back from him where it's like he sends me the most incredible video, I'm like punching the air just through the roof excited. So
you're like, I wouldn't have even done this.
Exactly. So I feel like I'm learning one thing that I'm really passionate about there is building a team and around me. I think that's one thing that's just really lighting me up in business right now.
So you're really big into the fitness space. You love working out. You love taking care of yourself. How has this newfound growth in your business, how has this impacted your personal life, family, or even just like your overall sense of purpose?
My goal when starting my business was to be able to spend more time with my family and have that freedom. And I believe I'm still working towards that right now. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm working very long hours, very long weeks, and a lot of it is I have these goals that I want to reach, and I'm just so focused on them right now, and I'm all in on them. So really, I know a lot of people have different opinions on this. I don't think any opinion is right or wrong, but I don't really have a work-life balance right now. I have family time, which I have family time. I have time with my faith and going to church and doing my devotions. And then it's business and nothing else really exists. I work out for about 30 minutes a day to stay healthy and maintain what I built up to this point. But I don't think that's not the goal long term. I'm working to a point to where I can say, man, I have worked so hard these past few years, and now I can focus on high leverage opportunities. I can continue to grow my business with a great team around me. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
You're a hustler. You're working super hard. You know, you're putting in the work. You're also seeing outsized benefits from that, where the business is doubling month after month after month. And so I love what you said about, I don't really have work-life balance. My wife and I both agree on the exact same thing. We believe in being where your feet are. If you're going to be with the family, be with the family. If you're going to, for instance, like if I'm going to be with my daughter, I'm going to be with my daughter. But if I'm going to be at work, I am not thinking about my daughter at all right now. Like I'm thinking about this conversation with you. And because that's what I owe to the person that I'm sitting in front of and the person I'm having that conversation to, or even the work I'm doing where I'm not talking to a person. Like, in order for me to be the best version of Landon, in order for me to provide this next level of opportunity and experience for my wife and kids, well, then I have to be all in on this. And I think that's where people get it so twisted, where they're like, oh, I got to be like dad mode for 5 minutes here, and then I got to go back to work. It's like, dude, you're not doing any of them, either of them any good, because you're not being present with either one. And so I love that you have that mentality at 20, because that exact mindset, I just hope that you never lose that and you just keep that for the rest of your life, because some of the most successful people that even I look up to today, people that have, built and sold companies with people like Tony Robbins. And, I asked him about this, like, what is your work-life balance? He's like, I don't have that. He's like, he said the exact same thing, ironically, that you did, Josh. And he said, like, it's getting to a point right now where with a lot of my friends, it's like, if we're not in some sort of a business venture together, if we're not like talking about our businesses, like, I don't really make time to do anything else. Like, I don't have a ton of hobbies. He's like, I like to go to the gym. I like to grind in business all day. He's like, I have my faith and I've got my family, and like, that's basically the 4 buckets, and there's really nothing left. So if you're not inside of one of those buckets, odds are is we're not going to spend as much time together. Right. And so that's super cool that you possess that mindset now, and it's just going to serve you so long. So I'm excited for that. What, really quick pivot here, but talk about community for a little bit, like the community that you found here at the Wealthy Creative. What has that been like, being plugged into a crew of like-minded, hard charging, young creatives? Like, what's that been like for you?
Oh man, this is something that I have been wanting to talk about. So it's always great to have people a big group of people around you who are interested in the same things, and you can bounce ideas off of each other. And when I don't know something, I can go ask somebody and get an answer that I would spend 2 hours trying to find on Google. Right. So that's nice. But to go a bit deeper on the subject, Alex Hormozy talks about a lot the lonely chapter, where, you're transitioning from a past lifestyle. For me, it was me in high school. I had a partying addiction. I was drinking 4 or 5 nights a week at minimum at 16 years old, which was awful. But I was transitioning out from that lifestyle and that friend group. And there's that lonely chapter that Alex Hormozy talks about, where you're alone. You're transitioning out of one group of people, and you haven't quite found that new group yet. That new group of people who align with your new values and who you're trying to become. So I feel like I'm getting to a point now where I'm beginning to find that new friend group a lot through the Wealthy Creative, and overall in life, where we're driven, we're focused on our goals. We want to grow our businesses. We want to grow as people. And it's amazing, because I craved that for probably the first 6 months of this year. I was like, I want somebody around me who is as driven as me and has the same goals as me, or even bigger goals, so that they can hold me to a higher standard. And I talk to a lot of business owners, especially like some of my clients and stuff, and they go through the same thing, that season of life where you're transitioning and you're trying to find your new group, and being around people who are just, like I said, driven, just kind of, it propels you forward even more. It's hard to ignite that fire in you alone. Many people can do it. Many people do it for that lonely chapter. But then when you get around those people who also have that fire, it's exponential.
For sure. Dude, I love that. That makes me think of when I was in a mentorship group in Lincoln, and I sat down at this table, and I was living in I talk about this a lot in my ads, but I was living in my cockroach infested apartment at this time, right? So my rent was $500. I was barely making that, but I was investing $750 into a mentorship group. And I walk in, and of course you can imagine the imposter syndrome, right? Like, I'm around these people, like, and my mentor, my first mentor, was running probably an 8-figure consulting company, coaching businesses and doing leadership and management consulting, like at the highest levels with, people who have companies with 3,000 staff. And then there's me. I have a camera, and nobody, like, just me. But I edged my way into that room, and found my way in there, and I sat down at the table. And we were doing IDS, which is identify, discuss, and solve, attraction, EOS traction process. And they're like, okay, list out your issues. And I'm like, I'm struggling whether or not I should build my website or I should outsource it or what I should do. And I was really like, I was like legit, dude, belaboring about this. Like it was taking up a lot of my headspace, living in my brain rent free for a long time. And so that's my like IDS that I wrote on the board. And then the other guy's like, regulation is changing our industry. I have 3,000 employees, and if I don't, and something about like their line of credit, which is in the tens of millions of dollars. It's like, I need a couple extra basis points on my line of credit, or I need to get a lower interest rate on my line of credit. And I'm just like, holy crap, I'm in the wrong room, but I wasn't. Like I looked at that and I was like, you know what? Like, I want problems like these someday. I want to be around people that are dealing with those sort of decisions of like, oh, I had, an executive of 10 years leave our firm to go join another one. Like that means you had an executive for 10 years, and so it was so funny just realizing how small my problems were and the perspective that gave me of being like, oh, wow, like I need to make faster decisions if I'm going to be these people someday, or even better than where those people are. So I love what you said about like being around people who have even bigger goals than you. That's a huge key there too. So if you were to identify something, what do you feel like stands out about the Wealthy Creative from other programs that you had been through? Like, what would that be?
I remember being in my last business group, my last mentorship program, and everybody was raving because this one guy had a $16,000 a month. And they were like, that's insane. No way. That's impossible. How'd you do that? And I was like, at the time, that was my mindset too. And then getting into the Wealthy Creative and, oh, this person's doing 50, 100K months. And I'm like, really? So, yeah.
Did I hear that right? Did he just say 50? Did he say 50K? Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. So just raising the water level, if you will, or the possibility of what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never knew that this stuff was possible.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting here like 20K a month was a big milestone, but now I'm kind of like, oh, what's next?
Yeah. What's next? That's the mindset. And not like, what I love about this too is that you're not coming at this from a place of like lack of gratitude where you're like, oh, that's nothing. It's like, well, it's something. You're not judging where you are today based upon other people's potential. You're judging against your potential. And like, that was one of the biggest things I heard from Ed Milet when I was growing up is, when I was like 25, actually, I listened to this video from Ed Milet. He's like, I'm sick of people telling people in their 20s that you have all this time. Like, oh, take your time. It's okay. And like the people that are giving that advice are like, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 years old. Take your time. It'll be all right. It's like, where is that guy at comparatively to where he could have been? Because if he's constantly comparing himself to like his neighbor and being like, what's possible for them? It's like, well, if you got that far within a year, well, then comparing yourself to somebody who got that far within 10 years would be a terrible idea, because their 10 out of 10 might be $40,000 a month. Your 10 out of 10 is probably closer to like $1 million a month, if not more. I'm just saying of what you can even imagine right now. And so that's a big key takeaway for anybody listening to this is like, be careful who you compare yourself to, because it's not you versus anybody else. It's you versus you and your God-given potential. We were all given, just like the parable of the talents, right? One was given 1 was given 5, one was given 10. And the way that Jesus speaks about the quote, you wicked and lazy servant, is what the master was essentially speaking about, that, which is the person who, they just took that little bit of talent that they had, or, it's an actual money in that regard, but let's compare it to talent itself. They took that talent and they just kind of like buried it. And they're like, just, whatever I got to do to get by. It's the same exact thing, right? Because he buried the talent and the master came back. He's like, you didn't even put it in the bank. Like, I could have gotten interest in the bank, but you buried it. Like, now I lost money on this deal. And then he went to the person with the 5 and the 10. And of course, like, said, well done, well done, good and faithful servant. Like here, you take over this kingdom. And essentially those people were given more and more and more to manage, to steward, to take care of, and to grow because they were so faithful with the little. And so that's another word for people who are watching. Like, don't compare yourself to outside people. Be faithful with the little that you've got and maximize it. Like, go all in on what you can do. And there's no telling like where it's going to take you. As we kind of wrap up here, Josh, I would just love to know, like, what would you say to someone who's on the fence right now about joining the Wealthy Creative?
I was on the fence multiple times when I first got into the Wealthy Creative, and then when I joined the guild. I would do it over again. I would if I were to go back in time to the day that I decided to join the Wealthy Creative, I would absolutely do it again, knowing what I know now. I actually had one person in my life. They didn't knock me for the investment, but they were like, what else could you have spent that money on? And I was like, honestly, I would do it again, and I'm going to do it again when it comes time. Yeah. So, looking at the returns, the outside returns, my business is growing, and it's growing faster than I ever could have imagined. And if I had stuck with that last business coach, who, like I said, was great for me at that point in time, but if I had stuck with him until now, I'm scared of where I would be right now.
Yeah. The cost of inaction is something that people don't necessarily calculate that often. And I always say, like, that money that's burning a hole in your pocket is going to find a way to spend itself one way or another. It might be a piece of tech you didn't actually need that you invest into. It might be something like a car. Money that sits idle wants to be spent, and there's an energy to it, and it's always looking, where can I be spent? And oftentimes it's not something that actually creates a tangible return and an actual, like, brings you back your money. I had a almost identical experience with my mentor, Josh, where so shout out to Brandon Forbes. I joined his program right when I was hit with the news about being diagnosed with blood cancer and all this stuff. And my wife and I had a decision to make at that moment. We said, okay, well, sure, we're about to go into this crazy season. We have no idea what's ahead, but where we're at in our business was fine at that point. And this is back in January of 24. Where we're at in our business is fine. And, like, we're going to be okay. But, like, I don't want to be fine. And I don't want this, whatever situation that I'm about to go through to define my life. So we made a decision, when it made zero sense to invest by the outside, but I'm sure my parents, if I would have told my parents or any of my friends and family, not my friends, a few family members and stuff, if I would have told them, hey, we're about to drop $25,000 on our personal development and growth in our business, they would have thrown up. They would have freaked out, right? And be like, do you realize the amount of bills you're going to have? What about the out-of-pocket medical expenses? Your deductible is $12,000. You automatically are going to have to pay that. And, like, I did. But here's the thing. Because of what I learned, because of what I applied, I had so much money left over. I sowed more into God's kingdom than I ever thought that I would dream of sowing in a single year. And that's the difference between people who cower and shrink back and those who actually charge forward and say, you know what? I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to grow this thing. I'm going to multiply this thing and keep multiplying, because just like Hormozy says, the S in me 500 is something that's never going to stop appreciating. And so for anybody who's listening to this right now and you're like, holy cow, 20 years old, this guy went from 2,500 in January to now doing 20K a month consistent. And if you want results like that, and you want to actually see the growth like this, then you're going to have to take the very next step, the same step that Josh took just a few short months ago. So what we're going to do is provide an opportunity for you guys. There's a link at the bottom in the description where you guys can click and book a call. And basically what will happen on the call is we'll have you answer just a few questions. It takes less than 60 seconds to fill out that quick questionnaire. And then from there, We'll ask you a few questions about your business, get to know you a little bit better, see where you're at today, where you're stuck, where you want to be in the future, and whether or not we're the perfect people to help you. And I always tell people, like, best case scenario, like, we're going to work together. We're going to move forward and get you awesome results like this. Worst case scenario, we find out it's not a fit. You leave the call, and at least you have a better game plan for the future. So there's really no risk to you. So click the link below, book in a time to chat with our team, and I will see you guys on the other side. Thank you so much for hopping on, Josh. It was great to have you on the show, and talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Landon.